Matthew chapter 25, and we'll pick up with verse 31. Now, there will be people who have not begun their journey of walking with Yeshua, who are alive when Yeshua returns. They survived the tribulation period. They did not worship the beast. They did not worship his image. They did not take his mark. And so they are going to be judged in a specific way. It appears so. When we look at Matthew chapter 25, beginning with verse 31. Let's read this. And when the Son of Adam comes in his esteem, and all the set-apart messengers with him, then he shall sit on the throne of his esteem. And all the nations shall be gathered before him. All the people of the nations who survived the tribulation period, who didn't take the mark, who didn't worship the beast or his image, they will be gathered together before Yeshua. And he shall separate them one from another, as a shepherd separates his sheep from the goats. And he shall set the sheep on his right hand, but the goats on the left. Then the sovereign shall say to those on his right hand, Come, you blessed, that's a key word, blessed. You blessed of my Father, inherit the reign prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you took me in. Was naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me. Then the righteous, those who acted righteously, shall answer him, saying, Master, when did we see you hungry, and we fed you, or thirsty, and gave you to drink? And when did we see you a stranger, and took you in, or naked, and clothed you? And when did we see you sick, or in prison, and we came to you? And the sovereign shall answer and say to them, Truly, I say to you, insofar as you did it to one of the least of these, notice, my brothers, you did it to me. In other words, the way that you treated my brothers, the way that you treated the children of Israel, Yehudah, when they were going through their distress, were you available to them? Did you love them? Were you concerned about them? Or did you agree with what was happening to them? Did you minister to them? Did you serve them? We see back in history, those who helped the Jews during difficult times, during times of war. The Jews called those, quote, Gentiles, righteous ones, because they were there to serve, and they were there to help, and they had a heart of concern. We turn toward the land of Israel every time we get together, and we focus on that land, and we focus on the unbelieving Yehudim. We're not angry with them. We don't hate them. We want to see them come to the truth. We want to do everything we can do to see them come to a knowledge of Yeshua as Mashiach and believe upon him with a belief that produces true obedience to Torah. And so we serve them. We have an attitude of service toward the unbelieving Jews. And I would put this before you and ask you to ponder it and pray over it, that those who survived the tribulation, who have not begun their walk with Yeshua, but they were alive at the end of the period, but they had a passion for the Jewish people. They were concerned about Yehudah. They wanted their well-being. They served them. They didn't have ill will toward them. They took care of their needs. When you look at all of those things that Yeshua said, you did for me, that's speaking of care and concern. And if those people had that attitude toward Yehudah, it appears that they are allowed to enter into the reign. They do not have their resurrection body. They still have their flesh, and they still have the evil inclinations that reside in their flesh, and they still must come to a place of belief and obedience within the context of the reign to be, quote, saved for eternity. But because they blessed, now listen to what I'm about to say, because they blessed the seed of Abraham, they were blessed. Now, where do I get that? Well, we have to go over to Genesis chapter 12 and look at verses 1 through 3. The fact that we can believe upon Yeshua with a belief that produces obedience, that good news was spoken beforehand to Abraham. Everything hinges on this covenant that Yah made with Abraham. And notice what it says here in verse 1 of chapter 12. And Yah said to Abram, go yourself out of your land, from your relatives, and from your father's house, to a land which I show you, and I shall make you a great nation, and bless you, and make your name great, and you shall be a blessing, notice, and I shall bless those who bless you, and curse him who curses you. And in you all the clans of the earth shall be blessed. And so this is a promise that Yah made to Abraham, that those who bless his descendants will be blessed. He will bless them. And those who curse his descendants, he will curse them. All right, let's get back over to Matthew chapter 25. Let's look again at verse 34. Then the sovereign shall say to those on his right hand, come, you blessed of my Father, inherit the reign prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and we go through that whole list of things that they did in service to Yeshua. But he said, if you've done it unto the least of these my brothers, then you've done it unto me. Now let's look at verse 41. He shall then also say to those on the left hand, go away from me, accursed ones. Accursed ones? Does that mean cursed ones? It certainly does. Those who curse the descendants of Abraham shall be cursed. These are those who survived the tribulation, but who had no service to Yehudah. They had the wrong attitude. They looked at their trial and they had no compassion. Now, I'm putting this forth for your prayer and your consideration, because when we get further into Revelation, I'm going to have to ask you the question, how does Hasatan have the power to stir up an insurrection if everyone in the kingdom has a resurrected body and no longer has evil inclinations in their flesh? How is that possible? You have to take that seriously. So we have to look at how people can enter in to the reign still in their natural flesh. He shall then also say to those on the left hand, go away from me, accursed ones, into the everlasting fire prepared for the devil and his messengers. For I was hungry, and you gave me no food. I was thirsty, and you gave me no drink. I was a stranger, and you did not take me in. I was naked, and you did not clothe me. Sick and in prison, and you did not visit me. Then they also shall answer him, saying, Master, when did we see you hungry, or thirsty, or a stranger, or naked, or sick, or in prison, and did not serve you? Then he shall answer them, saying, Truly I say to you, insofar as you did not do it to one of the least of these, he's talking about his brothers, you did not do it to me. In other words, you had the opportunity to bless the descendants of Abraham, and you did not. Instead, you cursed them. And these shall go away into everlasting punishment, but the righteous into everlasting life. Hallelujah. So let's take a moment and look at a few verses that will talk about what will take place in the millennial kingdom. We're going to start in Micah chapter 4, verses 2 through 4. And we're going to look at the peace that's going to exist in the millennial reign. Micah chapter 4, starting with verse 2. And many nations shall come and say, Come, let us go up to the mountain of Yah, to the house of the Elohim of Yaakov, and let him teach us his ways, and let us walk in his paths. For out of Sion comes forth the Torah and the word of Yah from Jerusalem. And he shall judge among many peoples and reprove strong nations afar off. They shall beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither teach battle anymore, but each one shall sit under his vine and under his fig tree, and no one to make them afraid, for the mouth of Yah of hosts has spoken. And so we see that in the millennial kingdom there will not be any war, there will be peace, and yet the scripture says that Yah is going to judge among many peoples and reprove strong nations afar off. Do you feel like that those of us who have our resurrected body, those of us who do not have evil inclinations are going to be needing to be reproved in the millennium? All right, go over to Isaiah 32, and we're going to begin with verse 17. It says, the work of righteousness shall be peace, and the service of righteousness be rest and safety forever. And my people shall dwell in a home of peace, and in safe dwellings, and in undisturbed resting places. So peace is going to be established in the millennial reign. Yeshua is the Prince of Peace. And then go over to Isaiah chapter 61, and we're going to pick up with verse 7. And this is talking about the great joy that will be experienced in the millennial reign. Isaiah 61, verse 7. Instead of your shame and reproach, They rejoice a second time in their portion. Therefore, they take possession a second time in their land. Everlasting joy is theirs. And then look at verse 10. I greatly rejoice in Yah. My being exults in my Elohim, for he has put garments of deliverance on me. He has covered me with the robe of righteousness, as a bridegroom decks himself with ornaments, and as a bride adorns herself with her jewels. And so great joy will be our robe. Hallelujah. And then comfort we find in Isaiah 40, verses 1 and 2. It says, comfort, comfort my people, says your Elohim. Speak to the heart of Jerusalem and cry out to her that her hard service is completed and that crookedness is pardoned, that she has received from the hand of Yah double for all her sins. And so she's going to receive comfort after she has been reproved and after she has been punished. And then go to Isaiah chapter 11. And we're going to pick up with verse 6. Isaiah chapter 11, beginning with verse 6. And a wolf shall dwell with the lamb, and a leopard lie down with the young goat, and the calf and the young lion and the fatling together, and a little child leads them. And cow and bear shall feed their young ones, lie down together, and a lion eat straw like an ox. And the nursing child shall play by the cobra's hole, and the weaned child shall put his hand in the adder's den. They do no evil nor destroy in all my set-apart mountain, for the earth shall be filled with the knowledge of Yah as the waters cover the sea. So even the animal kingdom is at peace during this period. Let's look at Isaiah chapter 2 and verse 3. Isaiah chapter 2 and verse 3. And this tells us that Torah will be taught from Jerusalem. And many peoples shall come and say, come and let us go up to the mountain of Yah, to the house of the Elohim of Yaakov, and let him teach us his ways, and let us walk in his paths. For out of Sion comes forth the Torah and the word of Yah from Jerusalem. And so there will be many who will need to and want to learn Torah. We all need to be perpetual students. But there will be those who are babes who will need to be taught Torah. And Torah is going to be taught from Jerusalem. People are going to gather at the mountain of Yah, to the house of the Elohim of Yaakov, and be taught his ways and learn to walk in his paths. It says, for out of Sion comes forth the Torah and the word of Yah from Jerusalem. And then go with me over to Revelation chapter 20. Revelation chapter 20. We're going to begin with verse 7. And when the 1,000 years have ended. Now, I pray that I got your mind thinking, your wheels turning, because this is a very interesting dynamic that we must have a biblical answer for and reason for. It says, and when the 1,000 years have ended, Satan shall be released from his prison. So he was in prison, in the abyss, bound for 1,000 years. He wasn't able to stir up the nations to war Yeshua ruled as a sovereign. The scripture says he rules with a rod of iron. And he was able to bring about peace in the earth through teaching of Torah and shining the light as an example to the nations. But at the end of the 1,000-year period, Satan is going to be released from prison. Now, Satan doesn't break out. This is not a jailbreak. This is Yah releasing him with purpose. Yah knows exactly what he's going to do. He's going to go throughout the nations who are alive in the millennial reign, and he's going to stir up insurrection. He's going to stir up rebellion. He's going to stir up a desire to be disobedient. Now, take that understanding and apply it to the typical religious understanding of the millennial kingdom. Because they say, everyone who's in the kingdom is righteous. Everyone who's in the kingdom has no ability to sin. They all have their resurrected bodies. And yet, how is Hasatan going to have authority to stir up an insurrection? To actually get those in the nations to have a desire to disobey, to reject Torah, to walk away from Yeshua, and be a part of an insurrection. Let's read through the verses. And when the 1,000 years have ended, Satan shall be released from his prison, and he shall go out, notice, to lead the nations astray. Yeshua is the sovereign. And yet Hasatan is going to be able to lead the nations astray. That's why I put before you that the bride is a different human altogether. We believed. We received the circumcision of Mashiach. We received the one-two heart and the power to be obedient. We walked in the ways of Yeshua. Yeshua is not coming back for a foreign bride. He's coming back for those who walk in his ways. And when he arrives, he gathers us up. And as the scripture says, in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, we are transformed. We receive a resurrected body, like Yeshua's after his resurrection. We are his bride, and we participate in the reign with him. But for the nations to be able to be deceived by Hasatan, then they must have been able to enter the reign in their flesh that has the evil inclinations remaining. Now, the scripture says that they will live longer lives. I could have shown that to you in scripture, in the reign. But they also will die. They will have children. Let me ask you this. Is the bride going to have children? No, we're not having children. We're like the messengers. But the nations will have children. And those children may not be taught the ways of Yah. Those children may depart. And then they are postured. We're talking about 1,000 years. They are postured then to be deceived. It says, and he, Satan, shall go out to lead the nations astray, which are in the four corners of the earth, all over the world. He's going out to lead the nations astray. Notice it says, Gog and Magog, to gather them together for battle. So there are people in the earth during the millennial kingdom who can be persuaded by Hasatan to gather together to wage war against sovereign Yeshua. How is it even possible that that thought could enter their minds? But it does. It's deception, one last deception. In other words, there's going to be a cleansing of the millennial reign. Those who have not yet believed, those who have not yet submitted to the sovereign, will be cleansed out. And that's what's going to happen. To gather them together for battle, whose number is as the sand of the sea. What? Wouldn't it only be just a few? We're talking about nations numbered as the sand of the sea. That's a lot of insurrection, folks. That's a lot of insurrection. Now, what I'm saying tonight, and I'm presenting it to you so that you can pray and you can study, but what I'm talking about flies in the face of most of the doctrines that are taught in the Christian church. They don't touch these scriptures because they don't have an answer for them. But we see the number of those who believe they can fight against sovereign Yeshua and win, they're deceived, is as the number of the sand of the sea. And they came up over the breadth of the earth. So they went to battle and surrounded the camp of the set apart ones. Surrounded the camp. Well, it sounds like what MICAH and the multinational military force is going to do when he comes against Jerusalem. The whole city is seized. There's nothing new in the playbook of Hasatan. And they came up over the breadth of the earth and surrounded the camp of the set apart ones and the beloved city. And fire came down from Elohim out of the heaven and consumed them. Elohim made a quick work of the insurrectionists. Notice, and the devil who led them astray. Isn't that interesting? That Hasatan has power to lead people who are in the millennial reign astray. The devil who led them astray was thrown into the lake of fire and sulfur, where the beast and the false prophet are. So this is the strategy and the plan of Elohim, because Hasatan could have gone into the lake of fire with the anti-Mashiach and the false prophet when they were thrown into the lake of fire. But he wasn't. He was reserved. He was bound and thrown in to the deep pit or to the abyss. Why? Because Yah was going to release him after the 1,000 years. There was going to be a purging to come. And all of those who are postured to resist and disobey and rebel and rise up and even think that they could win in a battle against the sovereign of sovereigns and the master of masters. Oh, how deceived they are. And so the devil who led the nations astray was thrown into the lake of fire and sulfur, where the beast and the false prophet are. And they shall be tortured day and night forever and ever. And I saw a great white throne and him who was sitting on it. from whose face the earth and the heaven fled away, and no place was found for them. And I saw the dead, small and great, standing before the throne, and the books were opened. And another book was opened, which is the book of life. And the dead were judged from what was written in the books according to their works. So this is the second resurrection. And the sea gave up the dead who were in it, and death and Sheol gave up the dead who were in them, and they were judged, each one according to his works. Yeshua said, you'll know them by their fruit. He didn't say, ask the tree what he believes. He said, look at his actions, look at his fruit. We don't listen to what people say they believe. We look at their actions. We can tell what they believe by what they do, because their belief informs their actions. They're going to do according to their belief. So judgment is not based on what a person says they believe, because many will say in that day, Master, Master, didn't we do great ministry in your name? And he said, depart from me, I never knew you, because you live like there was no law. You're lawless. And so judgment is not based on a person saying, I believe. I believe. Mixed up religion teaches people to mentally acknowledge, quote, Jesus as the Christ, and then don't do any more. If you want to obey the Bible, you've fallen from grace. Now you're just a law keeper. So it's not about what you say you believe. It's about what you do, because your belief informs your works. And death and Sheol were thrown into the lake of fire. This is the second death. And if anyone was not found written in the book of life, he was thrown into the lake of fire. And then you can continue reading on. Let's read a few verses. Chapter 21. And I saw a renewed heaven and a renewed earth. For the former heaven and the former earth had passed away, and the sea is no more. And I, Yohanan, saw the set-apart city, renewed Jerusalem, coming down out of the heaven from Elohim. See, we're not all going up to heaven. Heaven is coming down. Prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the heavens saying, see, the booth of Elohim is with men, and he shall dwell with them, and they shall be his people, and Elohim himself, the Father, shall be with them and be their Elohim. And Elohim shall wipe away every tear from their eyes, and there shall be no more death, nor mourning, nor crying. There shall be no more pain, for the former matters have passed away. Now, this says there shall be no more death. There will be death in the millennial reign. But after the millennial reign, and the rain has been purged, then there's no more death, no more mourning, no more crying, no more pain, for the former matters have passed away. And he who was sitting on the throne said, see, I make all matters new. And he said to me, write, for these words are true and trustworthy. And he said to me, it is done. I am the Aleph and the Taw, the beginning and the end. To the one who thirsts, I shall give of the fountain of the water of life without payment. The one who overcomes shall inherit all this. And I shall be his Elohim, and he shall be my son. Notice, but as for the cowardly and untrustworthy and abominable and murderers and those who whore and drug sorcerers and idolaters and all the false, their part is in the lake which burns with fire and sulfur, which is the second death. So I want you to ponder, how is it that Hasatan can be released from his prison after 1,000 years of Yeshua reigning on the earth, ruling with a rod of iron, teaching his ways to those in his reign, and yet Satan is able to stir up an insurrection? Just think about it. These are people who are proud. These are people who are disobedient. These are people who have turned away from the sovereign Yeshua. These are people who actually think they can rise up and wage war against the sovereign of sovereigns and the master of masters. Can you imagine what condition they are in if they're being deceived like that? And yet they are in the reign. How did they get there? And how is it that they have the inclination of so much evil? Is the bride going to walk away from Yeshua? No. We've become like him. We have a resurrected body. We are delivered from the evil inclinations of our flesh. We made ourselves ready on this side of the reign. We prepared ourselves. We broke away from the lawlessness that's in the world that we're living in. We determined not to be influenced by the mystery of lawlessness. And we said, we're not going to walk in the ways of modern culture. We're going to be defined by Torah. We're going to return to the ancient paths of Yah, and we're going to walk in the ways of Yeshua, so that our defense when we stand before him is, we did it because you did it, and because of that, we enter into the first resurrection, the resurrection of the righteous. We have a resurrected body. We're delivered from the evil inclinations of our flesh. And as the scripture said, we will be gathered to meet the master in the air, and so shall we always be with the master. You can't always be with the master and participating in an insurrection. So there's two groups of people in the reign. We have an example of the righteous one who obeyed completely and said, follow me. We have an example in Scripture of the anti-Mashiach, who is the ultimate leader in disobedience on the earth, empowered by Hasatan. And he is deceiving the whole world to disobey Yah. He's going to begin in that latter 3.5 years to broadcast, however he has the technology to do it. He's going to broadcast blasphemies against Elohim. How do you stir up an insurrection? You broadcast blasphemies. They don't have a new play in their playbook. What's happened in the past will happen in the future. And Hasatan is up to his same old tricks after 1,000 years. He goes out into the nations, to the nations of the world, and he speaks blasphemies. And he gets people to side with him. And it's that one last attempt to destroy Elohim and his Mashiach. And Elohim makes a quick work, and the rain is purged, and then we enter in to the new phase of the new heaven and the new earth and the new Jerusalem, an eternity with Elohim. Elohim with us forever. Hallelujah.